Hello, everyone. Jonily here with my good friend Julie, and this is episode 1 of Money and Math Sense. Sense, C-E-N-T-S, because we want to make sense of mathematics and make sense of money. I am Jonily Zupanzik. I'll be leading this little episode today. I am a math coach and consultant, and I support schools, districts, and teachers to enhance instructional delivery in the classroom, preschool through high school. And today's focus on enhancing that instructional delivery is connecting math and money. But we have an amazing co-host here. Her name is Julie. I'll let her say a few words about herself and how she is going to add to our discussion today. Julie, take it away.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julie Brown, and I can be reached at my coach, Julie Brown at gmail.com. And I am a financial coach who helps families get busy doing life and finances beyond their wildest dreams.
I love it. That has such a ring to it. What's really cool about this episode, if you're watching, is I'm going to give you a little background about why we're bringing this connection together. So actually, today's episode is also going to focus on our littles, and I'll describe what our littles are. But let me give you a little background for why Julie and I are connecting. So we have financial expert and educator in the same place at the same time. And for the past, I would say 5 or 6 years, schools and school districts across the United States, and this varies by state, have developed what they call this need for financial literacy. So I'm not going to go into a lot of the definition of financial literacy, but typically it's a course or an add-on or an enhancement or an elective at the secondary level. But I've always been very interested in 3 hidden concepts mathematically that hold kids back from achieving mathematically. And one of those hidden concepts is understanding money. And I believe that we have digressed in this area, or some people might say that we never really progressed in this area. But what I want to make all of us aware is financial literacy, yes, is important. And that's fine. We can have a course, we can have development for kids, we can have electives. But financial literacy starts with understanding the value of money. And those 3 hidden concepts in mathematics, one of them being money, holds kids back from ultimate mathematics achievement success. So you're probably wondering, what are the other 2? The other 2 are time and measurement. So there are those 3 concepts, time, money, and measurement, tell us if students struggle with those 3 things, that tells us that they are also struggling mathematically. Now, if they're achieving in those 3 areas, there's also a correlation to some good math success. In this series, we are going to focus on the money piece of that. How can we teach our math classes and our math courses and connect them to money for 2 reasons? Number 1, to help students understand math better, but also to bring in that financial literacy element as early as preschool. So now let me define our littles, and then we'll start some teaching. The littles that we're going to focus on today are preschool kiddos, kindergarten, grade 1, and possibly moving into grade 2. Now, this could span before preschool and after grade 2 as well, but those are the areas of the instructional methods that I'm going to share today. What Julie is going to help us understand is how we can lay a foundation of good financial literacy at the very early stages of life. So before I jump in, Julie, do you have anything to add on that, or anything else that I've missed as far as this big picture of this series that we're trying to make awareness of?
No, I don't think so. I just love the opportunity here that we have to be able to lay some foundation for the littles, as you say. What a great place to start having some discussion and helping some of these little ones so that they can be successful throughout their life.
Absolutely. And be financially stable and successful as adults. And I think that's what Julie is going to teach us today. But we're just going to focus on these littles today. I'm going to start first by talking mathematics instruction at those primary levels. One of the things that we use at the primary levels quite frequently, if you've never seen this before, that's okay. This is brand new then. But if you are an educator, you have probably seen what I'm going to call a 10 frame, and I'm going to show you a picture of what a 10 frame looks like. A 10 frame looks like this. It is 5 spaces on top, 5 on the bottom, and it makes 10 spaces altogether. We typically use these to teach mathematics at the early levels. And 10 frames are probably one of the best strategies to help improve understanding of number and the sense of number. So when we are using 10 frames in the classroom, what I would like for us to do, and I'm going to just stitch this right back here so we can see it. What we typically do when we are filling in spaces of the 10 frames is we use bears or counters. But because we want to increase financial literacy and we want students to understand the value of money, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use either real pennies or fake pennies. So you can purchase fake coins really anywhere on the internet, in stores, sometimes the Dollar Tree. Shout out to the Dollar Tree. We don't get any kickback from the Dollar Tree, but I like shopping at the Dollar Tree. When we have fake coins or even real coins, those are some of the best markers for my tens frame. Because now I can do what I'm already doing in the math classroom, but I can connect this idea of the value of money. Now, I know what you might be saying. You might be saying, Jonily, in preschool and kinder, we don't really have any standards that connect to money. Exactly. That's part of the problem, to be completely honest. So what I'm going to ask us to do is teach our standards and do what we would always do, just make a little tweak and use the actual penny or fake pennies for our markers so that students can start to identify coins, identify the value of coins, and relate that to improving their math achievement. So what I'm going to do is I am going to cover up 3 of these spaces with pennies. And if you are an educator out there, if you're a parent out there, you may or may not have seen a tens frame, but one of our goals at the primary level is to pair numbers to 10. So what numbers make 10? 5 and 5. And in this case, I have filled in 3. How many are still missing? Well, in this case, I can count 5 and 2 more. I can count 1 at a time. But the goal here is to use the actual pennies, because each of the pennies has a value of 1. What's really awesome is if I fill up the entire 10 frame, that's 10 pennies. Eventually, I can relate this to a dime. I can swap the entire 10 frame for 1 dime or half of a dime. And yes, I talk about half with my littles a lot. They understand half. Somebody makes them a sandwich, cuts it right down the middle. That's half. I get 2 pieces, but each of the pieces is smaller than the original piece. Each of the piece has a value of half. Half of a dime is 1 row. It's a nickel. So just understanding the value of money, filling the 10, which is one of our math standards, and understanding how we can swap out pennies for dimes and nickels, even if it's not explicitly in your standard, is a way that we can start to build financial literacy. Julie, I know you're probably itching to give us some financial advice here for these littles. Talk to us about some other things that we can do, either with what I've shown or just with coins in general.
Yeah, with coins are such a great place to start. And like the pennies, okay, this is a very basic place and such a great thing here to get started with the value, right? So then you can talk about, okay, if I have 5 pennies, well, let's do, if I have 10 pennies, and I want to have a piece of gum, right? A gum ball or whatever, and it costs 2 pennies. How many pennies do I have left? Right? So starting that concept of, okay, if I have this much, but I want to use this much of that, what do I have left? Right? And starting to understand the value of, okay, is that, I think even with the littles, they can understand this. Is it important enough to me to use my 2 pennies for this, or would it be better for me to wait and have more pennies so I can get something else, something that's more important to me, or something that I want more than what I'm trying to get here?
And Julie, you're leading us to the one thing that I've heard you say before, and that is, once you spend, it's gone.
Right.
So talk to us about that concept. I mean, maybe that is the entire concept.
Well, it really is the concept, is understanding that once it's gone, it's gone. You can't go back and get it, and as you expand this to older children, it becomes a greater lesson, right? Because even as adults, sometimes we don't even think about, oh, I spent that money, so I can't spend that same exact money on something else, right?
I love it.
Starting so young is so important, because then they get it, right? It's so much easier for them to get it when they're younger.
I love it. And we're going to get to your next thought in a moment, which is these buckets or these camps of where our money goes, and to start that financial idea early on. And we've already talked about one of those camps, which is spending. So
Right.
We're going to come back and we're going to talk about those buckets in just a moment. So Julie, get ready to talk to us about how we can divide up our money, and what is best, and how we can start to get these littles to understand where, if we get money, 10 pennies, let's say, or $10, what do we do? What should be our mindset?
Mhm.
So before we do that, I want to talk a little more about the math instructional piece. So we've got this 10 frame. Okay, so we've got a 10 frame. And if you are an elementary educator, you are probably familiar with a 100 chart. If you're a parent, you may not be. If you are an older educator, an educator of older students, not an older educator, an educator of older students, you may not know what a 100 chart is, but a 100 chart is essential. We know that mathematically and in our money system, the number 10 is so important, because that is where we get decimal numbers, and that is where our digits come from. There are 10 digits, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. When we start talking about decimals, that relates directly to money. And I know this isn't necessarily for our littles, but I want to start bringing these kinds of things in when we're having conversations with our littles. The one thing that I want to really stress with our littles is the value of 10 and the value of 100 and the relationships between those. So we have this tens frame, and I want kids to see how a 10 becomes 100. Like, one of the questions is, how many dimes makes a dollar? Like, how do we build this concept very early on with kiddos? It's very abstract. One of the math instructional strategies that I like to use with littles is I like to take the tens frame, and I like to cut this tens frame right across the center. I like to cut it in half. So this is just another instructional tool in how I can get students to understand number. I just cut this in half. So I have 2 equal pieces, but what I want to do is I want to make a long tens frame, a 10 stick, so to speak. And some of our manipulatives are called base 10 blocks. They make a 10 stick. Once we make 10 sticks, we're going to make lots of different 10 sticks. And if we stack them on top of each other, we are going to make a hundreds chart. Now, what I'm going to show us here, because I like for for kiddos. My kinders are actually in the middle of doing this right now. Each of them has a tens frame. They cut it in half. They make a 10 stick. And we're trying to figure out how many 10 sticks we need to make a 100 chart. Then we're trying to figure out how big is 1,000. So like, even with kinders, we can conceptualize these numbers that go beyond what our standards tell us to teach. But I always stress in my professional developments when I'm working with teachers, when I'm working with schools, that we need to teach beyond. And what that means is at an exposure level. I'm not going to test them on thousands, but I want to expose them to thousands. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a smaller 10 stick, just so you can get the idea here. Once we stack these 10 sticks on top of each other, students will realize that by stacking each of the 10 sticks, I can actually, if I stack 10 of them, I can make 100 chart. Now, what's super cool about this transformation going from 10 frame to 10 stick to 10 of those 10 sticks makes the 100 chart. What's super cool about this is I call it a dollar chart, a dollar chart. So now if I fill each of these spaces with pennies, 100 pennies is going to make $1. So now I can, with my littles, talk about identification of coins, the value of coins. I can talk about combinations of coins. If I have lots of dimes, I can talk about skip counting by tens, lots of nickels, skip counting by fives, lots of pennies, skip counting by ones. If I have a quarter and a bunch of pennies, I can start at 25 and count on by ones. Like, these are all our math standards, but I'm teaching my standards through this vehicle of understanding coins and the value of coins. And then all of a sudden, when I jump to my 100 chart, all of a sudden, those coins can become $1. So we can start to talk about the value of $1. So Julie, back to you. What is essential for students, for kiddos, for adults to understand about the value of $1 with one of those buckets being spending? Spending means it's gone. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, you're right. I think a lot of times, even as adults, we don't think about, oh, I just spent that dollar. You know, I guess we look at kind of like pennies. $1 is just $1. It's only $1, right? But when you look at it in a bigger picture and you realize it adds up really quickly. And once it's, I love what you were saying, once it's gone, it's gone. And even as adults, sometimes we have a hard time realizing that, you know, especially if we're not using cash, we have a hard time realizing that once it's gone, it's gone. So I think just like children, even as adults, we can learn from the values that you're teaching here. The parents, I love that the parents have an opportunity to be involved in something like this, because I don't know about you, but I know for me, sometimes, especially working with children, sometimes you get these aha moments, right? It's like, well, duh, why did I not think about that? And so what a great opportunity here.
And I love one of your lessons for parents, and that is this idea of allowance or gift money.
Yes. Yeah.
How do we help kiddos not only understand the value of what they've been given, but what to do with it when they get it?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think we had this conversation as I was growing up. We had grandparents who at one point in time started, instead of giving us gifts, started giving us money, which was great. But the question that always came right behind the gift was, what are you going to spend it on? Well, what is it that we're teaching our children when we ask, what are you going to spend it on? Instead of stopping and saying, okay, what's the value of this? And you have options. You can save, you can spend, or you can give, or you can do a combination of those things.
I love that. Say those three things again. This is good.
You can save, you can spend, or you can give.
Love it. Love it. So if you're a parent out there watching, great lesson when money comes in for your kiddos. If you're a teacher, if you're an educator, what a great lesson for littles to start to piece out some of these coins or sticks or whatever it is we're using that we're gathering a bunch of, what do we do and how do we divide these out? So what are some of the lessons or advice you would give us for each of those three areas?
I would say to start with, especially for simplicity's sake, I would say divide it up evenly. So, a tenth, a tenth, a tenth, or something like that, so that it's simple and you're not trying to calculate numbers that maybe you're not ready to calculate yet. Even as adults, sometimes it's like, I can't calculate that in my brain, right?
Absolutely. So let's go back to our 10 pennies. Let's say this is full of 10 pennies. What I can actually do is I can take these 10 pennies and I can split them up, whether it's in those 3 areas or 5 areas or 7 areas. I can start to give credit or give accountability for each of these. Now, this could also be $10. If I've just gotten $10, I could decide, how am I going to split up $10? Well, I could put $1 in this bucket, $1 in this bucket, $1 in this bucket, and $1 in this bucket, and $1 in this bucket. But I love your 3 buckets. I'm going to allow myself to spend. I'm going to allow myself to save. And I love that third one, the gift, the charity. Like, what can I do to help and serve others? I love it. So if I get $10, maybe I decide, you know what? I'm going to save $4 of it. I'm going to spend $3 of it. And then how much do I have left to gift? So now, my educator math brain is going, now what I can start to do is talk about all these different combinations of 10. Let's suppose I've been given $20. What are all the combinations of 20 if I have 3 buckets? What if I have 5 buckets? I don't know what those might be, but maybe it's spend, save, gift, and maybe it's I'm going to put part of my money together with my brothers for something. I can put this in a lot of different buckets. I love the 3 you're talking about: the spend, the save, the gift. But I can do this mathematically in the classroom with so many different variations of these 3 buckets. Then I can talk about fraction. I can talk about division. I can bring in all of these other math concepts, but I can use money and financial understanding to teach my mathematics. Brilliant. Love it. Love it. What else would you like to add, Julie? We're getting to a close here. We're going to wrap up soon, but give us some of your final thoughts and give us where people can find you again, just like you did at the beginning.
Okay. So again, I love that you're doing this, and that you're laying a foundation for the children, but also that the parents will learn through this process as well, and starting at a simple level. I don't know about you, but as an adult, sometimes that simple level, I need that, right? And so the help that parents can get as well as the children through this process, I think is invaluable, quite honestly.
Fantastic. And where can people find you again?
So you can reach out to me at my email. It's mycoachjuliebrown@gmail.com.
Love it. And this is absolutely our first in a series of Math and Money Sense. But this is our first episode in this series. And today we talked about littles, how to enhance your instructional delivery in schools with littles by building financial literacy, but teaching math concepts through money. So this series is all about math and money sense, CENTS, sense, but good sense, SENSE. I love it. So we've got this whole math and money sense series that Julie and I are going to be bringing to you. And the second episode in this series, we're going to look at our intermediate kids. So as the kiddos get older, 2nd grade through about 4th and 5th grade, we're going to talk about instructional strategies to enhance your curriculum with the understanding of money. So we're really going to get into some of these buckets and fractions and percents and things like that. And Julie is going to bring us the next level of financial understanding and how we can better and more explicitly utilize these three buckets of spend, save, give. I absolutely am excited about everything that we have to offer here in this series. You can find me at Jonily, Jonily, Jonily at mindsonmath.com, or you can go to jonily.com or mindsonmath.com. And this, my friends, boom, 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 is how we make Mathaniers. Money matters, money and math sense is exactly one of the steps in making Mathaniers. You can also find me at makingmathaniers.com. Julie, thank you so much. We will be back at you with episode 2 of this series, Math and Money Matters.